We going? Hello, thank you for joining me. This is the webinar for the 2020 Globe International Virtual Science Symposium Judges. So this webinar will go over all the information that you as a volunteer judge needs to know for scoring projects for this year's projects. So first of all, I want to thank you for volunteering as a judge, and glad to see a lot of repeat judges this year, and looking forward to being able to continue this process. And my name is Amy Barfield. I work at the Globe Implementation Office in Boulder, Colorado, and I've been working with the IVSS for a few years now, and so I'm excited that we're able to keep it going. So this year has been a really great year. We've gotten a record number of entries of projects. So we've gotten over 260 projects, and we've also gotten over 260 volunteer judges. So it's been a really good year. And so our goal, as it is every year, is to at least get 3 judges per project. And so for the most part, we have been able to do that. This year we've been really fortunate because we've allowed it to open up to multiple languages. So in addition to English, we are now accepting projects in Arabic, Spanish, French, and Croatian. So for the most part, we are able to get 3 judges per project, but that also depends on the number of judges we get who can speak those different languages. So in the case of Arabic projects, we might not have 3 judges for all of those projects, but they will at least get scored by at least 1 or 2 of our fantastic judges. So just keep that in mind. So every project will get a I am a student researcher badge on their school's webpage. And what constitutes this I am a student researcher badge is a research report and a presentation. And so their presentation will be either a poster or a video or a PowerPoint, some sort of representation of their research. And in addition to getting their I am a student researcher badge, which is basically a participation badge that they'll be scored on between 0 and 4 stars, students can opt to get additional badges. And these are optional, so if a student hasn't opted to get one of these badges, that's okay because they're optional, but sometimes students like to get these based on their research. And so I'm just gonna give a very brief overview of what these optional badges are, but more information is going to be on our website. So I encourage you to check that out. So students might earn an I am a collaborator badge. And so this is if they have demonstrated that they have collaborated with other students or other schools. I make an impact. And if this is a badge for students who has their research will have an impact on the community or the greater world, and they've demonstrated or talked about how that works. There's the I am a STEM storyteller badge for students who have come up with really creative ways to share their research. I am a data scientist badge for students who have gone above and beyond in using data and data analysis. I am an engineer, which is for students who have demonstrated use of or creation of an engineering solution. And I am a STEM professional for students who have worked with a STEM professional or who have discussed careers in the STEM fields. So first up, I just want to talk about the timeline of judging. So today is 30 March. And so this webinar is being recorded today, and this recording as well as these slides will be posted to the IVSS website later today, as well as all of our judges. So all of you should receive the scoring information and the projects that you'll be judging. And you have until 6th April to complete all of the scoring. So that includes reviewing all the projects, providing feedback, there's giving the scores, assigning badges, asking students questions. So we'd like you to do all of that by April 6th, and that's going to be due at the end of the day. And if you might get an email from me or my colleague Sarah before then, kind of nudging you along, but hopefully we won't need to do that. And then on 22nd April, which is also Earth Day and Globe's anniversary, all of the scores and the feedback will be sent to teachers, and the virtual badges will be posted. Also on that day, we'll do a drawing for stipends. So over the next few slides during this webinar, I'm going to go over all of the information that you need for judging and all of the parts of the judging process. But for now, just a quick overview. So what you'll need is the project title, and this is going to be very specific. We give you a sheet that has the project title on it, and when you're grading, make sure you're grading with the project with that exact title. And that means usually copying and pasting that title when you're looking for it, because our projects sometimes are very similarly titled. They can even just differ by one character. So please make sure you're using the right project title when you're looking for that project and you're scoring that. The next thing is you're going to need a correct grade band rubric. So we have broken down our grade rubrics into kindergarten through 2nd, 3rd through 5th grades, 6th through 8th grades, and then 9th through undergraduate grades. So this means that not all of our students will be graded based on the same criteria. So it's all very similar, but it's going to be a little bit more specific, a little more detailed for those higher grade levels, those older students, than it is for a younger student. So when you're scoring, make sure you're using the correct grade band so that you're scoring them appropriate for their age and grade. The next thing you'll all need and you'll all get is the Google scoring form. So this is just like a basic Google form. I will go through all of the details of it later, but you'll need to fill it out completely for each project, and all of that should be done by 6th April. The next thing you'll need is your globe.gov login. So I would encourage you, as soon as we are done with this webinar, to go check yours now. So if you have a globe.gov login because you're you've been involved with Globe in the past, maybe you're a teacher or an alumni or alumnus or a country coordinator, or have some role in Globe, you should already have a globe.gov login. And so go ahead and check your account. And if you're having any problems remembering your password or accessing your globe.gov account, you can email help@globe.gov. But if you're joining us and you don't already have a globe.gov login, welcome and thank you for joining us. You don't need one in order to participate as a judge. We will send you information to log in as a Globe scientist. Now this is just sort of a generic account, but it means that you're still able to participate as an IVSS judge. So you'll be given all of this information in an email later today and tomorrow. So now I'm going to go over all of the details of this scoring process. So the first thing is that you'll want to look at the assigned projects. So every judge has been assigned a number of projects based on their preferences. And so all of those projects will be sent to you in a Google Sheet. So it'll look something like this. You'll have your name, the number of projects you're assigned, and then information about the project. So like I said, you'll have a title, and those titles are very specific. So make sure you're using the exact title that is printed here. You have student information, grade level. So once again, I'm going to point out that make sure you're using the correct grade band for the grade level of the students for each project, where they're from, which protocols that they've used. You'll see a video URL if the presentation that they've included is a video. If you won't see anything if it's a, for example, here they've uploaded a poster, but if there's a video URL, make sure to look at that. And then these are those optional additional badges. So each student may or may not have selected those optional additional badges that they are trying to earn. So make sure when you're scoring and assigning badges, you're looking to see which ones they've applied to get. So the other thing I want to point out on this sheet is all of the links that we've provided for you. So there's the rubrics, a link to the rubrics page, and that's going to be on the, that's going to be what you use to score based on the grade level. The feedback submission form, and so that's a Google form that I'll walk you through later, and this is where you actually submit all of the feedback and the scores for each project. This is just another reminder, this is a link to look up the projects, but also another reminder that you'll want to use the exact title when looking for your project. And then here's another reminder about the due date. So make sure you're submitting your projects by that Monday, April 6th. That's a week from today. So next up, I'm going to walk through finding the projects. So you've been given your Google Sheet and you know what the projects are that you're looking for. So there's a couple ways to find them. So one way is to go on the globe.gov website. You can hover over this Do Globe, and you can either find it here in Student Research Reports, or go to Research and Resources and select Student Research Reports. And those will take you to the same web page. From there will be a filter option, and so you can enter your report title verbatim, as I mentioned. You can look it up by school name, but definitely you'll want to be making sure that you are filtering it based on this year, 2020, and by the project report type. So this is the International Virtual Science Symposium. And so all the information that would be in this filter is something that you can find on your judge sheets. The other way to find IVSS reports is from the IVSS website. So that globe.gov/science symposium. In the tool menu or the menu bar on the left-hand side, you'll see this link for Virtual Science Symposium reports. And then once again, you can filter it by the country, by the age range, the protocols used, things like that. So here's an example of a report from this year. And so I just wanted to show you what it'll look like when you open it. So you've got the title, all the students, the grade level. So this information, all of this information should also be on your sheet, but you'll find it here as well. The protocols, the presentation poster. So if they uploaded a PowerPoint or a poster, you'll find it here. And then this is the button you'll select to actually view the report. So sometimes there might have been a mix-up where they'll have uploaded the report where it says presentation poster and their poster where it says report. And that's okay, that happens. Just make sure you're looking at both of those, and you'll also want to be looking at both of those anyway when you're scoring, because you'll be scoring on the content that's in both of those. So next up, I'm going to talk about using the correct grade band rubric. So I've mentioned this a couple of times, but we just want to make sure that we're judging our students fairly. And, you know, we're not using the same criteria on a undergraduate as we would a kindergartner. So to find the grade band rubrics, you can go to our globe.gov/science symposium website. And on the menu bar on the left, you'll see rubrics and badges. And it'll pull you, it'll open up this page. And a lot of our pages, our IVSS pages, have been translated into some other languages. This page, for example, is in Espanol or Spanish and Arabic. So you can, to help you, if you speak one of those languages, you can use that translation. And then you'll find the rubrics. So these are broken down by grade level. And so you can select the grade band here and click that, and it'll pull up, it'll slide you through that page, and you'll see it. It'll have the number of stars based on the grade, as well as what the report should contain. And then you'll also have noticed that during this slide, I've used this blue teal sort of template, and you'll be sent this. But you can also find it here on this rubrics page, and that also will have all of the grade rubrics. So here's an example of the lower primary grade band rubric. So it has how to judge based on stars, as well as what the criteria is and what the required elements are. So required elements have these asterisks next to them, but this is basically what we're looking for in a report, these elements here. Next is filling out your scoring form. So this is really what, how the students will be getting their feedback and their scores. So you'll be getting a Google form for entering your scores, and you can find the link for that both on your scoring sheet, that Google sheet that I showed you earlier, as well as by email. So you'll want to fill it out completely for each project. And so you should read the project and then score. So you're not, you know, you want to make sure it's fair. So make sure you're looking at both the report and the poster or the video and score based on those two things. And you'll fill it out completely for each project. So what does that Google form look like? What does that Google form look like? So it looks something like this. So you'll get, this will say 2020 IVSS Google form, some reminders about using the correct grade level, use a link to the rubrics, and then I've also included, since I've made this slide, some tips for judging that I'm going to talk about later. And so a reminder that there's going to be 3 sections. So the first one is the identification of the project. So here, you're going to put your email address. This is your email as a judge, so we know who's judge, but it will be anonymous to the students. The name of the judge, so your name. But then after that, we're going to switch to the student project. So the country that the student is from, not necessarily the country that you're from, or yeah, not your country, but this country the student is from. And that information is on the website as well as your Google form. And then the project title. And I'm going to once again emphasize to please copy and paste the exact title that is on your Google form. And then you'll select what grade the student is in. So this will pull you to the correct part of the next correct part of the form. So if your student, for example, is a high schooler, you'll select this, and it'll bring you to the criteria and rubric for the grades, for that grades. And so here we have information about how to score between 1 and 4 stars. And then you can also find the rubric, which has all the required elements and the project elements on this link. So you'll want to score between 1 and 4 stars. So a 4-star project is one that really excels. They've got all of the parts of the present or the report that we're looking for. They've really done a great job explaining everything. The writing is clear and concise, and it's just really well done. A 1-star project, on the other hand, is one that will have all the basic elements, but maybe they don't go into it as much detail and depth. And so it's up to you as a judge to determine how many stars they do. And you can see we also have a 0-star option, but you will not likely need to use this. This is something that we've checked for. We've made sure all of the projects have the required elements, and those are usually some sort of introduction or abstract, using GLOBE data and GLOBE protocols, having clearly defined research questions and research methods, and some sort of concluding section as well. And we've already checked all of the projects for that, so you will not likely give a 0-star. Then the next part, now this is really the most important part, and this is really what I think is the true essence of the IVSS, and this is the feedback on the project. So this feedback is going to be sent directly to the students, so really be careful about what you're saying and how you're saying it. And it's also really important that that we give feedback, because one of the main points of the IVSS is to help these students grow. So we want to give them feedback on their project so that they can learn from this experience and take this feedback and apply it to either this project so that they can submit it to a different science fair later on, or even to next year's project. So really be considerate in your feedback. And I'm going to give you some tips to help you with that feedback later on here. So the next section of this judging form is the optional badges. So like I mentioned before, students may want to earn up to 3 additional badges, and the ones that the students are applying for will be on that Google form. So it's a binary option. Either the student has earned the badge or not earned the badge. And if you indicate that the student earned the badge, there's also, or have not earned the badge actually, there's also a section here where you can provide feedback and indicate why you've earned that. So one thing that might be helpful is if a student, has indicated that they want 3 additional badges, for example, but one of them is not the collaborator badge, you can say badge not earned, and we won't count that against them. So you can either leave that blank, or you can say badge not earned if the student did not indicate that they want that badge. However, if the student did indicate that they want that, you can say either that they've earned the badge or not earned the badge, and there'll be an opportunity to explain why. And then after you've filled out those 3 sections, you'll see this, this page, and it'll say that your response has been recorded. And immediately after you respond, you might want to edit your response. So you will be able to do that, but just keep in mind that this edit your response option is only available right after you've submitted. So if you want to change your mind or change how you've scored it, you'll want to do that right away. Otherwise, you can submit another response. So for those of you who have indicated that they can score multiple projects, you'll fill it out completely for one project, and then you'll submit another response for the next project. So now I want to just take a minute to talk about some judging tips. So the scoring, giving the stars between a 1 and 4 stars is pretty, it's up to you based on how well the report is written. But like I mentioned, providing feedback is really the best part about the IVSS, because this is feedback for the students that they can really use and grow from. So I just want to do a few quick reminders here. So the first thing is that these are students. You're talking to students, so just make sure that the language you use and the feedback you provide is appropriate for students. These aren't professionals, these aren't science experts, these are students, so just tailor your feedback to that. Another thing to consider is the grade level. So like I mentioned before, you'll be given different rubrics for different grades, but also think about that when you're writing feedback, in that, how a second grader will write, and the quality of their work and the depth of knowledge is inherently different than somebody who's in high school. So just be considerate of that. The next thing I want to remind you is to be considerate of different languages. So this goes both for the judge and for the student project. So if you are writing to a student, as a reminder, this is a worldwide thing. It's International Virtual Science Symposium. So you might be talking to students from different countries. So the feedback you give, if you're using really complicated language, they might not understand it. So you want to make sure that you're using language that they could understand. And also very, very important is that because this is an international thing, the students might have translated their work, or they might be, submitting it in a language that isn't their first language. And so their grammar or sentence structure or these little nuances might not be perfect, but we really want you to be scoring on the scientific quality and the content rather than the grammar. So that the focus is on what they've produced in terms of science and exploring their environment and understanding their environment, rather than, if a word or two are spelled wrong. So the next thing is, I just want to remind you to check both the presentation and the report. And as I mentioned earlier, sometimes those, when they've uploaded them in the incorrect area. So a report is uploaded as a presentation and vice versa. And that's okay. That doesn't, we don't want that to count against them, but just make sure to check both. And if they have a video, make sure you're looking at the video. And sometimes a student won't have a presentation at all. And so you might just want to just score on the present or the poster, or just score on the report and not on the presentation. But if they have provided both, make sure to grade based on what's in both of those. And a final little reminder is that these projects come from all over the world. So I've mentioned this a couple times now already, but just a reminder that there's going to be language differences and there's going to be cultural differences. And so we're not grading based on those. We're still focusing on the content and the science and the environmental impacts and what they've learned rather than those. So maybe you'll see a difference in, they might add a prayer, or the acknowledgements and the thank yous are written in a way that you might find different from how you would write it, but that's not really, that shouldn't be counted against the student. So now some more just general tips. So we want you to provide constructive feedback. So we really want the students to take this opportunity to learn and grow as scientists. So constructive feedback means something that the students can actually do, things that are realistic based on, expectations and grade level, and something that is specific. So if you just say something like, this is terrible, change the whole thing, well, one, that's not very nice. It's not constructive. There's nothing that the student can really do about that. And there's nothing that it's really specifically targeting for them to learn from it. So you want to focus on maybe a certain thing, like, provide an example of something that they could actually work on, like report layout or something like that. So make it constructive in that they can actually do it, and they can actually do it in a realistic time frame. The next thing is to highlight their strengths. So sometimes knowing what a student has done really well can be just as powerful and informative as knowing what they could improve on. So if a student has done a really good job in a specific area, you can mention that. Students love to hear what they've done well. And if you're struggling to come up with some ideas for a constructive feedback, I've provided some ideas. So once again, constructive feedback means, not just leaving a simple message like, good job. We really want them to go into depth about what was good or what wasn't as strong. So these are just some areas you could use. This doesn't mean that you have to use this. You might have your own ideas. But one idea of things you could focus on is maybe project structure and complexity. So if they've, you could ask if the student has had a clear strategy, if they understand a deeper understanding of the content and the context of their research. You could provide feedback on the data. You could ask, is there enough data? Did they do a good job doing any analysis or visualization? Or could they have done one? Another thing you could think about is the broader impacts. So have they considered broader impacts, such as ecological impacts or impacts to the community? Or you could focus on resources used. So have they used the correct tools, the correct methods? Did they use globe resources like data visualization system? So these are just a few options. If you're struggling to think of some ideas, you could use these. So I just wanted to highlight a really well done example from a couple of years ago. So this person wrote this feedback, and I think they just did a really good job of highlighting some strengths of the project, applying some suggestions for the research that are very concrete and specific, and an overall just a good summary of what they were, reading and seeing in this project. So I'm just going to read this out loud. So your research topic is a very important one. It focuses on the dangers that pesticides may have on much needed agriculture in your area. With that said, it was interesting to find out that some of the treated plants even changed color due to the pesticides, which is very disconcerting. I love that you integrated the expertise of local farmers as they get a firsthand look at how their crops react to what is in the soil and in the water within their growing fields. As you mentioned, it is truly important that you have addressed the need for those involved to seek out other alternatives to this pesticides, including deltarin. I hope that you will take this to your local environmental leaders and show them this data. One thing that I would like to have seen is better organization of the poster you have presented. I noticed different fonts and sizes and no real order to the text boxes. Thank you for a good project, and I'm looking forward to seeing more research in the future. So this is just an example of a really well done comment. So this kind of use this as inspiration for some of the feedback that you may give. And the other thing I wanted to point out is the feedback above that I just read. So this is going to be sent anonymously to the student, but you also have an option of making comments that are public. And I'm going to talk about this more in a minute here, but this is a good opportunity to interact with the student. You could maybe ask them questions about, future research questions, for example. And so Chris has done a really good job of what a public comment can look like. And so all of the tips that I've mentioned are also in a document that I've created. And so you can find that on our resources, or you can find this on the resources page, as well as on the rubrics page, and on the Google form itself. So I've gone into just a little bit more detail about some of the points that I briefly mentioned here. So, considerations for the audience, the students, the grade level, language, culture, etc. About providing constructive feedback, just a little bit more detail about that, highlighting strength, and then some more detail on some ideas. So if you're struggling to come up with some ideas to focus on for constructive feedback, you might look at this, and I've provided a bunch of different example questions that you might ask of the research. And this is just a tool for you to use. It's completely optional that you use this, but definitely consider providing really good feedback for these students, because this is a very important part of the IVSS. And then a few final things I just wanted to note, that if you're unable to complete the judging for your projects, please let us know as soon as possible. We understand that things come up and we're sensitive to that. So if you can't do as many projects or do any of the projects that we've assigned you, let us know and we'll find other people to take those projects. Conversely, if you are finding that you have a little bit more time now and you can score additional projects, let us know and we'll be able to give you some more projects to score. If there's any issues that you find finding a project, either in the database, or if you just think something is not correct, or if you're having trouble opening a report or opening a presentation, let us know and we can help you with that. And finally, I want to mention that if you have a conflict of interest with a project, so maybe you've worked with these students on this project and we try to avoid that, but sometimes we accidentally assign a project to somebody who's been involved with it, let us know and we'll reassign that project. This can be a little tricky with some of with the new requirement that we've allowed for alternative languages. So for example, you know, all of our Croatian projects are assigned to Croatian judges. So there might be some issues, but we'll try to work through those together. So let us know if you've been assigned a project that you were involved with in some way, and we'll reassign that project. So the final thing I want to talk about is making comments to the students. So I pointed out that example from Chris a couple slides ago. So this is an opportunity to engage with the student in a public way. So the feedback you provide is anonymous, but if you'd like to engage with the student, you can. And so if you look at a project, for example, this one from a few years ago, and you scroll down, you can see this comment section. So you select be the first, or maybe there's a few comments and it'll say add a comment. And it'll look something like this. So this is an example that Julie posted. So this is the place where you can write comments. But this is where you can ask questions of the students and engage with them, you know, virtually in a not anonymous way. And so if you're using the Globe Scientist account, so you don't have your own Globe account, you want to make sure to sign your name, because it'll just say Globe Scientist here. It'll just be a grayed out silhouette. So if you want to engage with the student person to person, sign your name here. So finally, I'm just going to go over the timeline again just to remind you all. So today, after this webinar, you will get your projects and the scoring information emailed to you. You will have until next week, that's 1 week from today, to review your projects, ask the students questions, provide feedback, you know, all of those things we just went over. And on April 6th, all of your scores are due. And on April 22nd, the scores and the feedback will be sent to teachers, and the badges that the students have earned will be posted on their school's Globe pages. And we'll also have our drawing then. And so I just want to thank you so much for participating and for joining me today on this webinar. If you as a judge have scored 3 or more projects by our deadline of April 6th, you'll receive a judge badge on your Globe page, as well as a certificate that you'll get emailed out to you. And if you have any questions or concerns, please contact us at ivss@globe.gov. And I want to just thank you for joining me and thank you for participating, and have a great day.